Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is really having to do with the leadership team tools and reports. And what we're going to be doing today is kind of a brief overview or a tour of the system from a leadership team perspective. One of the things about BNI Connect is that although we're all using the same system, certain functions are accessible to certain roles within BNI. So for example, a regular member will only see a couple of things under the operations menu, maybe the ability to add a visitor registration and to send out a visitor invitation. Whereas as soon as you become, let's say, a mentor coordinator, you'll also be able to see the functionality that allows you to assign mentors and mentees in the system. And as you become a secretary treasurer, you'll then also be able to assign the speaker rotation. And if you're a vice president, you may be able to then enter the POMS reports. So what we're going to do is kind of take a look at how to do some of these functions. Now, whether it's because you are brand new, for example, I don't know, vice president that has just taken over in the middle of the term and you weren't really sure how to go about entering the POMS report, or if you have been a vice president for a while and you're just looking for new things in the system, or you're a president and you're looking for some reports that might be able to help with your role. And for whatever reason, we are here to go through some of those things. Now, as I said, not all things that I show you today will be available to all people. So that is something to keep in mind. If there's something that you see today and you say, wow, I really wish I had that, but it doesn't seem to be here, that's something to definitely talk with your regional office about. So have a word with your director consultant, or have a word with your executive director, or with your area director. They should be able to either explain why you're not using that particular feature or function or report in your area, or they can even update the permissions if they say, hey, I never knew you didn't have that and you're supposed to. So either way, that is a decision and a discussion to have with your regional office. The other thing that I'll say as a kind of caveat warning before we get started is that there are many, many different management styles throughout BNI. And while there are typically a set of things that different roles usually do, there are different ways that they have been delegated throughout various chapters around the world. As an example, vice presidents typically, in most cases, they are the ones that enter the POMS reports on a weekly basis. However, there's some regions around the world, I know of a couple of them, where they have delegated that access to ease the burden on the vice president, and there's somebody else in the chapter, there's another position in the chapter that is able to then enter the POMS report. So it's a customization that they've done in their region. Similarly with the entering visitors. In some regions, that's going to be the visitor host that enter visitors. In other regions, it's going to be the secretary treasurer that enters visitors. So in any event, I try to be agnostic, so to speak, as to who's responsible for what, more just how this function happens in BNI Connect. So as this is a live webinar, you are welcome to ask questions as we're going through all of the materials today. This webinar is usually a little bit longer than the typical webinars that I do. Usually the webinars are about 30 minutes, but there's a bit more that happens in this one, and usually there's a little bit more discussion as well. So most of the time this webinar takes somewhere between 40 and 60 minutes depending on the discussion. I understand if you do have to leave right at the bottom of the hour, if you have to leave early, if you'd like to come back and review this, this will be recorded. It will be made available on both the support site by clicking the question mark in the upper right-hand corner here. That will take you over to support.bniconnect.com, where you'll be able to find all of the recorded material. You can also find it on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. So, all right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these things from a management, from an operations, from a chapter perspective, a leadership team perspective. One of the things that I do want to say, because leadership team people are also members. So when we're looking at this home screen here, the thing that I always have to emphasize is that all of the information that's part of your My BNI Business module, which is really the online slips module, is private to you. With the exception that when you pass a referral to somebody, they're obviously going to receive the information about that referral. But when it comes to reviewing your thank you for closed business slips, for example, if I go and I click on review my thank you for closed business slips, I'm the only one that can ever see this detail. And that's an important thing to keep in mind, because when it comes to both troubleshooting and with members that are using this, they like to know that, their regional office can't see these details or can't see their client phone numbers or their client names. From a troubleshooting perspective, especially on the leadership team, you'll often have a member come up to you and say, well, what's wrong with this? How come this isn't showing? How come that's not showing? It's not something that even I'm a member. I'm also a system admin here in BNI Connect. Even with my godlike access to the system, I can't look up these details from anybody else's account. So that's something to keep in mind when you are troubleshooting. If they would like, for example, one question we always get asked is, well, I put a bunch of referral slips in, for example, and these referrals are still showing up as draft. How come they're still showing up as draft? Well, it's because the POMS report hasn't been input yet this week. But of course, you can't see this on another member's report. Now, I'll show you as a vice president or somebody on the leadership team how you can look at the audit report for this. But if people want to share this information, it's important to make sure that they either print this out and share it with you, or they can export this and share it with you that way as well. Another very helpful thing when working with members, and again, a lot of the things we talk about today goes back to being a vice president, because they do have quite a bit of the administrative responsibility. But when a member comes to you and says, oh my goodness, my statistics they're just not right. I wasn't absent 4 times, or I had way more than 20 referrals this year. The best way to check that is to have the members go to their My Personal Participation Report right here on the home screen. This will open up the Personal POMS report for the last 1 year. What's great about this is it gives them a week by week, blow by blow view of the POMS report. So when it comes to saying, yeah, I don't think I was absent that week. Well, which week was it? Because when you look at the summary POMS report, all you see is the statistics. But here you can pinpoint, well, I have you marked as absent on August 20th. Is that correct? Or I show you as having given 2 referrals on this date, or this thank you for closed business. It makes it much easier troubleshooting if you can directly have them work and let you know which exact week the issue was. All right, so that being said, we're going to go beyond the home screen here and start looking at some of the operations and reports that are available to leadership teams. Now, a lot of people have said to me over the years, once or twice, that BNI Connect is not the most user-friendly system out there, and that's true. It's a big system, and there's a lot of stuff hiding behind the surface, and we do have to get to it by accessing some menus. Now, the way that I remember where to go and look for and find stuff in BNI and in BNI Connect is that we do have to access these menus along the top. Now, most of us are just going to have network operations and reports, and that's where 90% of the things that you'll need to access are located. Network is going to be always the networking components. So they're the social media things in BNI Connect. When you want to connect with another member, or you want to look at your BNI address book, or you want to give testimonials or review your testimonials, those are where all of those things are. Where you'll spend the rest of your time is in operations and reports. Reports are read only, and that's the important thing to remember. Reports read only. If you're looking to get stats from BNI Connect, go to the reports. If you're looking to do something in BNI Connect, you're looking to enter something, you're looking to pair a mentor and a mentee, you're looking to send an email or send a visitor invitation, the place you're going to go to is operations. If you're going to do stuff, operations. If you just want to read stuff, reports. So let's go first to the operations menu and take a look at some of the things that are available there. All right, so here in the operations menu, you'll see that along the left-hand side, we have all the different things that we can do with our chapter. Now, for director consultants who may be on the line with us as well, keep in mind that when you're working at the chapter level here, all of these things that we're going to do with the chapter will be performed on whatever chapter is in this drop-down list. Right now, I'm working on the Burr chapter in the Shiver region of Antarctica. But if I wanted to work with the Frozen Assets chapter, for example, I could switch my drop-down to the Frozen Assets. Now, for those of you that are just in one chapter, you're not yet an ambassador or a director consultant, you'll obviously only have the one chapter here on the drop-down list. But we can see here on the left, we can work with visitors, we can work with the meeting, things like the POMS report, as well as the speaker rotation. We can also work with memberships for those regions that have the chapters working with that and entering applications. That's the place to do that. We also have a chapter goals program. There's a mentoring program that sends out weekly emails to the mentor and the mentee about what they should be discussing each week. There's a section called Create Email, where you can email your chapter, email a visitor invitation, or email chapter visitors. And then there's a Manage News function. Now, I'm not going to touch on all of these today. For example, we do have a whole webinar dedicated just to managing goals. We actually just did that webinar yesterday. The recording will be up on the support site very soon. You'll be able to review that. So if you'd like to learn more about the goals program, please do jump on our webinar next month regarding that, or you can check out the recording as well. And when it comes to managing memberships, we're not going to talk about that today, simply because not all regions utilize that particular function. So the first thing I'd like to talk about really is the meeting management, because that's probably the thing that we get the most questions on is, how do I enter a POMS report? Especially for, again, most of the time this is going to be the vice president. Although, generally speaking, anybody on the leadership team does have access to do this, mostly so that you can back up your vice president. So if your vice president is, let's say, on vacation for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, you can jump in and assist with entering that POMS report. So when we get to meeting management, we have 3 different things here: View POMS Summary, Enter POMS, and View Edit Speakers. View POMS Summary allows us to go back and review any single POMS report available in BNI Connect. Enter POMS would bring us right to the data entry screen in order to input a single POMS report. So, for example, let's say that somebody comes and says that, oh, well, I need to review this one particular POMS report, or maybe make a change to it. You can go to View POMS Summary, and you can look back in history, even beyond your particular role. I mean, I can go back to the early days of the BNI Burr chapter, and here I can see all of the POMS reports that have been entered. A couple of tricks about this. This is basically a table that shows all of the information. I can increase the number of things. You can see it's showing 1 to 10 of 100 POMS reports that are in the system for the Burr chapter. I can change this to show 25, 50, or even all 100 of them on the screen at once. Another thing that's common among a lot of the elements here in BNI Connect is that you'll see this other box over here. It'll say either refine or search. And what this is a filtering of the various results in the report. So, for example, if I just wanted to see all of the draft reports, I could just type in the word draft and it will filter out and just show me all of the draft level reports. And we can see here that our vice president in Antarctica is not doing a very good job at getting those POMS reports in on a weekly basis. It works the same if I wanted to see who had been entering POMS reports. I can look against a specific person. Of course, the sorting works as well on this. But what this does is this allows me to go to any report. So I could say, for example, this report from September 23rd. I can click on the word completed, and what this will do is bring me to that particular instance of the PALMS report, so I can see all of the details that were entered in for that particular week's meeting. And looking through this, I can also see two buttons at the bottom. As part of every PALMS report, as you guys know, with the online slips, all of those slips get automatically entered into the PALMS report. So for chapters that are completely digital, doing all of their entry via online slips, we can see all of that detail. For people that are doing some paper slips and some online slips, you have to make up the balance by entering that material into the PALMS report directly. So you can see which ones were automatically entered by clicking on Slips Audit. We can see here that we just have one thing that was entered online in BNI Connect, and that was Alfred E. Newman passed a referral to Darcy Doolittle, and it was an outside referral. So we know that all the rest of the things in the PALMS report were manually entered. Now, if you do need to go back and make a change to any past reports, not available in all regions, but you may see the Unlock PALMS button. So if I needed to make a correction to this and I say, oh, you know what, the thank you for closed business, I think I have an extra number on there. It wasn't $123,000. It was only $12,000. I could go back. I can unlock this PALMS report. And then I can correct this particular number. And I'll get back to that other screen that just popped up in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and take that extra digit off there on the 6 and make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I can submit the PALMS report. And now that number will be corrected, and all of the historical reports and the summary PALMS reports and everything else will be corrected, as well as the figure on the regional website. Now, the other thing that we're going to be doing on a weekly basis is to make sure that after your chapter meeting that the PALMS report does get entered. So the first thing you'll do is go to Meeting Management again, and now we can go to Enter PALMS. Now, whenever you go to enter the PALMS report, the first thing that you will see is all of the visitors that have been entered into BNI Connect that people want credit for inviting those visitors. So what we can see here is that there's been 3 visitors to the chapter that have been entered, John Smith twice and Brian Smith once. We can see who invited them, and we can see who did the data entry. And essentially what they're asking us is, do you want to give Albert Camus credit in the July 9th PALMS report for bringing John Smith? And I have the opportunity now to choose yes or no. Yes means it will go back to that PALMS report and it will put in credit. It'll give Albert Camus a 1 in the V column for inviting John Smith. If I say no, it will not give them the credit and it won't ask me again about John Smith. So I can go ahead and say yes to these. And now it'll ask me, when do I want to enter the PALMS for? So I'm going to enter the PALMS report for yesterday's meeting, which is November 18th, and click Enter PALMS. So now essentially all we're doing is filling out a spreadsheet. Now, if you had any online slips, which the Burr chapter is not very good about doing, they would be automatically entered into the PALMS report. Now, if you are 100% digital in your chapter, then the only thing you'll need to do at this point is to take attendance. So I can put in that, Bob Jones was absent this week, Harvey Keitel was late, and Marky Mark had a substitute. And Joe Slow is still on medical leave. Now again, if you are using paper slips, at this point you need to sort those all out into piles and then do all the counting and enter them in. So for example, Albert Camus gave an outside referral to Art Garfunkel. So referral given outside to Albert Camus, and Art Garfunkel has a referral received outside. For those of you that may not know, RGI, RGO, RG is referrals given. RR is referrals received. An inside referral is when one member refers themselves to another member. And an outside referral is when I introduce you to somebody else outside the chapter. So it could be my mother, it could be my sibling, it could be my best friend's uncle's brother's girlfriend. Again, somebody other than myself. V is for visitors. One-to-ones are one-to-ones. Thank you for closed business is TYFCB and CEUs. So after you've gone through, taken attendance, put all the paper slips in, you can then submit the POMS reports. You can put any remarks down if you'd like to. Oh, this was a great meeting, or any other notes that you'd like to keep about that meeting. When we come to submitting it, there are a bunch of different options here at the bottom. The first one is submit POMS. That will just close out this POMS. It will input all those statistics, and now this POMS will be closed and official and count towards all of the statistics for the chapter. Mark as holiday is a special circumstance. So for example, here in the United States, we have a couple of holidays coming up. Next week we have Thanksgiving, and then we have Christmas coming up towards the end of December, and then we have New Year's. Now, although there are a lot of chapters, what they try to do is meet on a different day of the week. There are some chapters that won't meet at all during those holiday weeks. If you are not going to be meeting, it's very important to go in and click Mark as Holiday. And what Mark as Holiday does is it kind of takes that report out of the rotation. So any online slips that were passed will be pushed to the next available meeting. So in this case, they'll be pushed to next week's meeting if I marked this as holiday. Save as draft means I haven't gotten done counting. I got an important call. I need to go take that. Want to make sure we save the data, but it's not ready to submit it yet. And if you completely mess it up and want to start over, you can discard it and start a new POMS report. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this one. It's going to ask me, am I sure I want to submit it? Yes, I do. And now that one is submitted. It'll show us the details of that. But now all of these will be counting towards the full statistics for the chapter. All right, so that's entering a POMS report and viewing a POMS report. The next thing that's available under meeting management is assigning speakers for the chapter. We do this, usually it's the secretary-treasurer that does this, although again, that may be delegated to other people. But under meeting management, we can go to View, Edit, Speakers. Now, if I'd like to see the historical list of speakers, I can click on this. I can go back in time if I'd like to, and I can see all the speakers that have been entered for this particular chapter. If I'd like to assign a speaker, let's say for next week's meeting, I can go in and click on Assign Speaker. I choose the date. Now, you'll note that I can only choose future dates. The reason for this is that it was never meant to be a go back and correct the past report, although some people do want to do that. It was meant to be a way to get a list going, but also to remind the speaker about their upcoming engagement. You see, by assigning speakers in BNI Connect, it'll actually send out 2 reminders. So the speaker will get a reminder 6 days before they're scheduled to speak, so they have a whole week to work on their presentation for the chapter. They'll also be reminded 3 days before the chapter meeting. The secretary-treasurer will also get a reminder letting them know who is speaking 3 days before the chapter meeting, so they can make sure they get their bio and remind the speaker to bring a door prize. But because of that scheduling, it wouldn't make any sense to send somebody a reminder for a speaking event they had in the past. So that's why the past one is disabled. Now you can go ahead and choose your speaker from the list. So let's say, I don't know, Ricky Martin is going to be speaking, and he's going to be performing his new album in 10 minutes. Once we click submit, they will be on the list for an upcoming speaker. We can see that Ricky Martin has now been scheduled for 11:25. Now here I can go in, I can edit this speaker, I can change his topic, or I can delete them. One other common question that we get about the speaker rotation is we're not able to shift it in any way because that's just the way it was designed. So I don't recommend going more than 6 to 8 weeks out, because if you can replace a speaker, but you can't say, oh well, Ricky Martin can't speak, let's shift everybody up a week. That is not possible right now in the system. But you could say Ricky Martin can't speak, you take Ricky Martin out and you put somebody else in their place. The other benefit of assigning the speakers this way, besides the reminder, is that it will show up on the regional website. So AntarcticReferrals.com is our regional website for Antarctica. And if I go and I find this Burr chapter, and I'm going to go to their chapter website, you can see the lovely chapter website that I created for them. But at the bottom here, you can see Ricky Martin performing his new album in 10 minutes. So that's something that's an added benefit to the members, that they get shown on the public website, especially because Google likes to see those things on the public websites. All right, going back to the operations menu, a couple of other quick things that are available and utilized. The whole visitor system we did review in a webinar a couple of days ago. You're welcome to check out that recording as well. But one common function for leadership teams is that I need to get an email out to my chapter. I need to remind them about the networking event or about the after hours or wish them a Merry Christmas or whatever it might be that you need to do in order to communicate to your chapter as a leadership team. You can do that a lot easier by clicking on Create Email and Email My Chapter. What this does is it does give you a list of the most current distribution list email addresses for your chapter. And this allows you to go in, and I can highlight these and copy them. And then using my own email program, I can add them all to the BCC line, please. Type my message out and send that along. So that allows me to very easily get the distribution list. I can remember before BNI Connect, used to have to go in and go to the last email that was sent to the group and hit reply all, and it would never ever go to the right people because there'd be a couple of people that had left the chapter and a couple of new people that didn't get it. This is an easy way to get the most updated list. So again, the goals function we talk about in another webinar. The mentoring program is another great thing where we can really help with brand new members that are in the chapter and be able to kind of get them off and running a little bit faster by pairing them with another seasoned member in the chapter. Now there's a whole training that goes about this, about how to do it and who to assign to who and the ins and outs of it, but BNI Connect can help to support that process because your mentor coordinator or somebody on the leadership team can assign the mentor and the mentee in the system. And we do this by clicking on Mentoring Program, and we can go to Assign Mentor Mentee. What we do is we choose a start date. So this is really a day when we're going to start the email campaign. That's what the mentoring program is in BNI Connect, is it's an email campaign that sends out a weekly email. Now regions do set this up themselves, so it could be anywhere from 6 weeks to 8 weeks to 9 weeks, depending on how the program is run in your region. But what this does is it starts sending out those emails that they've customized. What's important to keep in mind is when you want them to start getting those emails. For example, it's allowing me to schedule this in the future. Maybe I want them to get this on Monday because if they start getting them on Friday, they may forget about it going into the weekend. Then I just choose my mentor and my mentee. So let's see. We're going to have Roger Dodger be the mentor for Adam Sandler up here in the Burr chapter. So once I click submit, again, the mentor and the mentee will start getting those weekly emails on Monday, and they get the emails once a week until the campaign is finished. If I'd like to see who's currently assigned, of course, I can go to View Mentor Mentee. I can put in a date. And I can now see Roger Dodger is paired with Adam Sandler. If for some reason that needs to be stopped, I can always delete that particular relationship. Or if Adam Sandler comes to me and says, yeah, I really think I deserve a different mentor, I could always go in and assign a new mentor as well. And now Marky Mark will get those emails instead of Roger Dodger. All right, so that's really the chapter operations in a nutshell. If you're questioning any of the other things, such as the visitors or such as the news functionality, for example, you can always click on any of these little question marks in front of the function. So if you say, you know, what's this manage news thing all about? Click on the little question mark, and that will take you over to the support system for that particular topic. And this will allow you to view what that is all about and how that particular function works. All right, let's take a look at some of the reports in the system that are useful for leadership teams. Now again, all of the reports in here are useful, but I just wanted to concentrate on some of my favorite ones from a leadership team perspective. So looking at these, of course, the very first one is going to be helpful, the member training report, so you know when your members have gone to training. And this is really helpful both for membership committees when you're reviewing a membership, but also for the, especially the secretary treasurer usually, who's going to be scheduling speakers. We can't schedule that speaker until they've gone to the member success program. So we need to find out if they've taken it yet. So I can just put in a date range if I want to and take a look at the training, but there's a really great function here that says show never attended. And this is kind of the reverse of the report, which makes it really easy to say, okay, I want to take a look at the member success program, and I want to see who's never been to this member success program. And I can see up here in the Antarctica Burr chapter, we got problems. We have lots and lots of people that have not been to the member success program. So we can see also when they joined. So we can see a couple of people, Robert Lovejoy here, he's been a member since 2012 and has never been to the member success program. So we might have to have a talk with the membership committee up there. Tell you what though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my personal chapter so that we have a little bit more relevant information going forward. And again, looking at this particular report, let's look at the member success program. This will give you a little bit better idea. We just have a couple of new members here just in the past month or so that have not yet taken their member success program. So again, great for especially the secretary treasurer when it comes around to scheduling the speaker rotation. Now the chapter roster report, pretty obvious, very useful report, but what I'd like to point out on this particular report is not just the fact that it shows all your members, the phone numbers, that's the obvious part of this report. It does give you an accurate chapter count, but more importantly, it's these officers listing up at the top here that I find really helpful. As I mentioned way back in the beginning of the webinar, a lot of the permissions within BNI Connect are based on what roles you have, so what positions you've been given within BNI. And those are assigned by your office, by your regional administrator or your executive director. But a lot of times the people will come back and say, hey, you know, I'm the visitor host and I haven't been able to enter any visitors. the first place I'd tell you to look is to go here and say, well, I'm sorry, John, I see Jane and Phil listed as visitor host, but you're not listed as the visitor host. That's why you're unable to enter the visitors. Perhaps it's because they didn't take training, or perhaps it was just an oversight. But either way, it's very fixable. You just have to work with your regional office to do that. And the other great thing about this report is it tells you who to talk to. You have your area director and your director here with their name, and it gives you your phone number so that you can get in touch with them if you have any issues regarding anything in your chapter. All right, membership dues report. This is a pretty obvious report. That is great for secretary treasurers, membership committees, vice presidents, pretty much anybody on the leadership team. What this is especially useful for is when people are coming up to make sure that they put in, for example, their renewal applications. You can see who's up for that and who would be up for that review process right before they are up for renewal and submitting that application. But I also like to use this because reviewing somebody as they're putting in their renewal is great, but if you really want to help members and you really want to help them stay in the chapter and be successful, it's really important to be looking at the people that are 6 months out. So not just the people that are due in December and in January, but the people that are due in April and May. So it's these people down here on the list that are due in April and May that we really want to be coaching and mentoring and meeting with and making sure that they're successful so that when their renewal does come around in 6 months, that there'll be no question except to renew. But this gives them an opportunity to become successful. All right, skipping down a couple. I mean, the meeting notes report is great for taking notes at the meeting, and the summary POMS report. This is the bread and butter of the statistics for the chapter. This is the aggregate of all of the individual POMS reports that you put in. The one thing about this particular report that's interesting is that you do have you have the ability to run this report for any length of time you want to. So by default, it's going to show you the last completed 6 months. But I can go back to 1995 if I want to, even though my chapter wasn't even open in 1995. And I can click go, and I can take a look at the statistics over that period of time. Now, right now, with the results that I'm showing, I'm only seeing the current members. And if I was to add these columns up, they would definitely not equal what's in the yellow bar down here, the total. And that's because we're just filtering out the people that have dropped that are not active in the chapter, but the report totals will always include the full contributions of the chapter. So this is an accurate number for our total thank you for closed business, or total number of visitors. If you'd like to see the dropped member names, you can just choose that option. And by the way, this is great for, there's some members that leave BNI that may be good members to invite back to BNI. Maybe they were great members at the time, but they left the chapter for circumstances they couldn't control. It's a great way to look this up and see chapters that, see members that may have been great performers when they were a member. You could review that information and referrals given and things like that, and possibly even invite them back. All right, I'm going to skip down a couple. The speaker report shows the speakers and the absence report and things like that. When it comes to reviewing members, the personal POMS report, this is the same report that you see on your home screen, the My Personal Participation Report. The difference is that you can run this report for any member of your chapter. So when it comes time for that review, when they're coming up for renewal, this is a great way to get their information. So you can, again, the one on the home screen is limited to 1 year. It's hard-coded to show you 1 year. This one, you can choose any date range you want to. You can go back, again, 10 years and take a look at it that way. But again, it is the same exact report that's on the home screen. All right, the VP report and the cumulative VP report. Essentially, these are the same reports. The only difference is that the VP report is going to show us a week-by-week view of a particular month. In this case, October. So it shows us week by week by week by week what was entered into the POMS report with some summaries and totals at the bottom. And the Cumulative VP Report is really the same exact way. It's just that it's going to show us a 6 month, up to a 6 month period. So up to a 6 month period, showing us month by month what those totals were. So we can see up to 6 months side by side. And a lot of people say, well, how come I'm only limited to 6 months? And it's quite simply because we kind of run out of room on this report to display much more. You can always run it, back to back with another 6 months, and you can always export all these reports to Excel as well and stitch them together. All right, before a presentation by a member in the chapter, it's great to have their bio, to be able to read their bio as an introduction. Now, a lot of times we chase down the members with a piece of paper and say, hey, fill this out, fill this out, fill this out. If they've done their profile in BNI Connect, you can always go to member details and look up their bio and be able to print it out before the meeting. So I can go, and under member details, this is the exact same bio that you hand out as a piece of paper. So once they've put it into BNI Connect, you don't have to chase them anymore. All right, and there's some other great reports down here as well. The chapter visitor report is fairly straightforward. It's all the visitors that have come to your chapter. The POMS attendance report is a kind of a unique report, and the reason I like it is because what it does is it shows us the trends of the attendance in the chapter. So instead of showing just the numbers of who's been absent or how many times they've been absent, it kind of shows us week by week, the trending of the absences. And you can see that it puts all the A's in red here. Where I find this helpful is that a lot of times you can spot somebody that may be starting to slip a little bit in the chapter. For example, we had one person here who started being absent and late a lot in a row. That might have been something that we would be able to step in and maybe work with that member to find out what is wrong before they ended up leaving the chapter. So chapter traffic lights, length of membership report, and we have the visitor registrations for the people that have registered to visit. Again, there's a ton of reports in here. You can't really break anything when it comes to reports, so I do recommend going through and clicking on them and coming up with your favorite reports. All right, so right before, I'm going to be opening it up to questions in just a second, but before I do so, I just wanted to show you guys one more thing. Now that you start to see some of the reports in the system and you start to figure out what your favorites are and what your responsibilities are, one thing you can do is you can create your own kind of shortcut menu to your most commonly used functions right from the home screen. So here I'm back on the home screen, and I have my My BNI Business. There's also the My Network, which is all the networking components, as well as your regional shared document library. And if I go down to this next one, which is chapter, this is really a shortcut menu to all of my favorite functions in BNI Connect. And this list can be as long or as short as you want it to be. But for example, if I want to email my chapter, I don't have to go to Operations Chapter, create email, email my chapter. I can just click on Chapter, email my chapter, and boom, the button, the information shows right up on the screen. So it saves me a half a dozen clicks. Now you can customize this by clicking the Configure button. And everything that's on the left-hand side here is the stuff that's in my personal list. Everything on the right-hand side is stuff that is not being utilized right now. I can click the X and move stuff out of my personal list, and I can just click on things. Let's see, enter new application, email my chapter, chapter traffic lights, enter POMS report. These are the things I'm going to use on a regular basis. So once I get that, I can submit it. And once I close out and the home screen refreshes, you can see now I just have these 4 things in my list. So I can jump straight to whatever it is I need without having to go through all of those navigation menus. All right, and that, my friends, is the leadership team tools and reports. What I'd like to do is to open this up to any questions that you might have regarding this, or really anything else in BNI Connect. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Again, the best way to enter a question is to enter it into the right into the Go-To Webinar panel, and it'll pop up on my screen, and I'll be able to see it and answer it. While you're thinking of any last-minute questions, couple of reminders, this is being recorded. You'll be able to find it in two places. So if you click this question mark here in the upper right-hand corner, that'll take you over to the support site. On the support site, you will see some wonderful things. You'll see the upcoming webinars, for example. A good referral for me is to please recommend these webinars to your fellow members and have them sign up for them. You'll also see all the documentation here, and here you'll find the recorded webinars. All the ones from November will be uploaded shortly, and then we also have the ones from last month and the month before and the month before that, so you can check those out, including some topics that we didn't have full time to cover today, such as the goals, the chapter goals program for leadership teams, and we also have the visitor module. So feel free to check out those recordings or join us for a live version of it next month. I'd also love it if you gave us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. We do tips and tricks and announcements and other things up here on our Facebook page. All right, so questions. So we do have one more of a comment from Steve Elliott. Thank you for being here with us today, Steve. Steve says, just a reminder that if you don't meet, it's very important to mark that as a holiday. So good point, Steve. It's better to do it, again, after your current week's meeting. If you know you're not going to be meeting next week, go in and mark that as a holiday. That'll make sure that all of the slips get pushed to the next active meeting. So you don't want to go ahead and do it too soon. So you don't want to go ahead and do Christmases now. You want to wait until that week after your meeting that you have before Christmas, for example. So thank you, Steve. And that would be a great topic for Elevate or something as well. So thanks. All right. Any other questions? So if there's no additional questions, what I'd like to do is to say thank you guys so much for being here today. I appreciate you spending some time this afternoon with me. I do look forward to you to seeing you on a future webinar. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to send them into support@bniconnect.com, support@bniconnect.com, or submitting a support ticket on the support site, support.bniconnect.com. Thank you guys so much, and happy connecting.